Zachary Lewis had everything society would call success. At 33, he lived in a sleek high-rise in downtown Chicago, drove a luxury car, and had a position as a financial analyst that paid well into six figures. But despite everything he owned, Zachary woke up each morning with a dull ache in his chest. It wasn't physical. It was something deeper. A kind of sadness that sat between his ribs like an unwelcome guest who refused to leave. His life had become a series of repetitive events. Wake up, work out, drive to the office, crunch numbers, smile at clients, come home, microwave dinner, scroll endlessly through social media until sleep took over. Friends who once filled his weekends with laughter and camaraderie had drifted away. Family dinners had become annual events, not weekly ones. Relationships never lasted more than a few months. Zachary had convinced himself that he was too busy, too focused, too important to invest in people. One rainy Wednesday evening, Zachary found himself seated on a park bench after a late meeting. He was supposed to head home, but something in him wanted to pause, to breathe. The park was nearly empty except for an older man feeding pigeons nearby. The man had a weathered face, gray hair, and wore a coat that had clearly seen better days. He looked like he didn't belong in a financial district, yet he seemed oddly at peace. "You look like you're carrying the weight of a planet," the man said without looking at Zachary. Zachary chuckled, mostly out of discomfort. "Just a long day at work." "Funny," the man responded. "Most people say they have long days. But very few admit that it's the life they've built that's tiring them." That struck a nerve. "Is that what happened to you?" Zachary asked, trying to deflect. "Oh, I had long days too. But I learned the hard way what not to ignore in life." "Want a list?" Zachary didn't expect that. He looked at his phone. No new messages. No one waiting for him at home. "Sure, why not?" he replied, more out of curiosity than belief. The man smiled and turned toward him. "You ignore these, and you'll be miserable for the rest of your life." Zachary rolled his eyes, but the man didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't care. "First," the man began, "ignore your passions. Do what pays you the most, not what fulfills you. That's the easiest way to make your soul wither while your bank account grows. I was an engineer. Built bridges, towers, and pipelines. Got promotions, bonuses, everything. But I always wanted to be a writer. I used to scribble short stories at night. Then I told myself I didn't have time. And now, I haven't written a single story in 27 years. Zachary was silent. That sounded familiar. "Second," the man continued, "ignore your relationships. Think you can go it alone. Believe that solitude equals strength." Believed it too. My wife begged me to spend more time with her. Said she missed who I used to be. I told her I was doing it for us. That we'd travel the world when I retired. But she got tired of waiting. Left. I haven't seen my daughter in 15 years. Zachary's throat tightened. He thought about Julia, the woman he had dated last year who had asked the same thing. "When will I matter more than your job?" "Third," the man said with a sigh, "ignore your health. Work long hours, skip sleep, order fast food, and drown stress with alcohol. I did all that. Now, even walking from my apartment to this park bench feels like a marathon." Zachary crossed his arms. That one didn't apply. He hit the gym religiously and ate clean. Well, most of the time. But still, he couldn't remember the last time he'd had a medical checkup. "Fourth," the man said, feeding more crumbs to the birds, "ignore your inner voice. The one that tells you you're off course. Drown it out with noise. Music, podcasts, endless Netflix. I knew for years I was unhappy, but I convinced myself that this was what life was supposed to be. It's not." Zachary thought of his AirPods. He wore them constantly. On the train, in elevators, even when walking to the coffee shop. Silence made him uncomfortable. Maybe because in silence, that voice became too loud to ignore. "And lastly," the man said, looking Zachary straight in the eyes, "ignore gratitude. Always chase what's next. New house, new title, new phone. Forget to appreciate what you have. I used to complain about the view from my window. Now I'd give anything to wake up next to someone I love and hear a child laugh in the next room. There was a long pause. The only sounds were distant traffic and the flapping of pigeon wings. Zachary finally asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you look like someone who still has time," the man said. "I didn't realize I was miserable until I had no chance to fix it. Maybe you still do." Zachary sat on that bench long after the old man walked away. He didn't even ask his name. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was the mirror that man had held up to him, one made not of glass but of truth. The next morning, something shifted in Zachary. For the first time in years, he called his mom. She answered after the second ring, her voice thick with surprise and joy. They talked for 27 minutes. He scheduled lunch with an old college friend he hadn't seen since graduation. He went to work not to chase a bonus, but to finish early. That evening, he pulled out a dusty notebook from his closet and wrote the first paragraph of a short story he had thought about for months but never started. By the weekend, Zachary had made another decision. He would apply to the master's program in creative writing at a local university. Not to change careers, at least not yet, but to feed a part of himself he had starved for too long. Change didn't happen all at once. There were still days he fell into old patterns. Still nights when loneliness sat on his chest like a heavy stone. But there were also new moments, warm, honest, alive. He stopped seeking validation through things and began finding joy in experiences. A walk in the park, shared meal, a well-written paragraph. 6 months later, Zachary returned to the same bench. He looked around for the old man but saw no sign of him. Still, he whispered a quiet thank you into the wind. He had no idea where the man came from or why he chose to speak that night. But he did know one thing. Ignoring those life lessons would have guaranteed him a lifetime of silent misery. Listening to them didn't magically fix everything, but it gave him a chance to live a life he could finally feel proud of. And that was more valuable than any paycheck he'd ever received.